Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to confess you something. It's my first trip in India, and I arrived 2 hours ago, and it's a pleasure. I've never met so many Indian people in the same room. So I'm very honored to be here, and what is interesting is that the world is really global because we are everywhere asking the same questions, trying to address the same issues. That means that we are all strong marketers, and which is great. So I wanted today to share with you some vision about the way we could make marketing and especially communication in media more effective. I would be very pleased if after this session you would have more questions than answers. So let's maybe begin what I have in mind. I think something has changed in the world is that in the past we could having a look on backwards data and then say this operation is effective and this operation is not efficient. Today it's much more complex to estimate the effectivity or efficiency of a campaign because there are so many touch points involved that it's impossible to just look at what has been done in the past to predict the future, because things are going very fast, and that's what the world is changing. So because digital has created a new media order, and I wanted to share with you that according to me, digital has changed our relationship with our environment in 3 areas. Our relationship with time, our relationship with brands, our relationship with space. Regarding time, it's clear that the time is extensible right now. Do you know that since the 50s, our leisure time has increased 671 hours compared to what we had 40 years or 50 years ago. Now, thanks to the technology, we can manage our time because we can use podcast, we can use video on demand, we can use catch-up TV, so we are perfectly managing our time. But at the same time, our relationship with time has changed because the world is going faster. If I took some example of changing, for instance, you know the story of Mr. DSK, and you know that the journalist to be informed had to get people in the room close to the judge with tweeters. So the journalists couldn't have done their job without having someone in the room, and they got the information with tweeters, so they got the information in real time. Have a look, for instance, of what has happened in the Arab world these last months. I had interesting number. You had in Egypt 2 million people who had a Facebook profile before the revolution, and 3 months later you had 9 million people who had a Facebook profile in Egypt. What is interesting is that now we cannot really measure the effectiveness of a campaign if it's not real time. That's why the model of the past, looking backwards to data and then predict the future, doesn't work anymore. Our relationship has changed with time, our relationship has changed with space as well. Two numbers. We had, Warner Brothers has launched a movie, and they have to announce to promote the movie. They have launched with augmented reality game, which is the Dark Knight, and the Dark Knight was played by 10 million people around the world in a couple of days. So it means that we are clearly in a global world, but at the same time, because of technology and because of geo-marketing, we are closer to the people. But closer to the people doesn't mean that we are closer geographically. It means that we are closer to a smaller community. The geo-marketing, we have spoken a lot of social media, but I guess the geo-localization, the geo-marketing is going to be the key marketing issue in the very next years. I put here an example of what has done Starbucks, for instance, in the US. They now, with the application on your iPhone, you can not only have coupons from Starbucks, but you can also pay your coffee in their shop. The third relationship that has changed is the relationship with brands. Social networking is given the power to the consumer. We spoke about this a minute ago. Of course, we have big people connected to the social networks, but what is interesting that through TripAdvisor, for instance, they are co-producing the content. And now I don't know anyone in the world when he's traveling who doesn't connect to AdAdvisor to see if the hotel is good, if the country is safe, and if the service is good in the restaurant. So, and what is interesting as the third example, Save Flash Forward, is a community that tried to save the series on television. So, for instance, when a series on a US television doesn't work very well, you have a community that is created to try to save the series. What is interesting as well regarding our relationship with the brand is that the individual now is a media. We are media. We have more fans than we are friends. And what we have now, we have audience. And because we have audience, when we produce content, we have audience that listen to our content. So even the individuals are competitors to the brands. What has changed as well regarding the brands is that people consider that sometimes it's more important the usage than the ownership. And this has a very strong impact on some economical sectors, for instance, the music, for instance, the cinema, or for instance, the car industry. Because step by step, you're going to have much and more people who don't want to have a hard copy of a movie and just want to rent it on a web page. And because of all of this, we have to face new challenges. The challenges are the fragmentation of the audience. We know everything about that. The fact that we are not consuming television on a linear way. It means that today in Europe, 70% of the people are watching part of their TV program on their computer. And there is a strong level of, and which is a key as well, of the measure of the efficiency of campaign is the multitasking. And multitasking has not to be perceived as a risk. 75% of the people in Western Europe are multitaskers. It means that when they are looking at television, they are using their laptop or they are using their smartphone or even their iPad. But usually advertiser says, okay, I'm confused with that because if they are not watching the television, it means that my ad is going to have a few impact on the consumer. But what we have to think about is how can we build experiences that make the people watching the television and at the same time interact with the program through another device. And that's the reason why today the main issue is not the audience anymore, is we are entering in the war of the attention, and what we have to get, what we have to seek is the engagement of the consumer. So these challenges has changed our media beliefs and assumptions in several areas. First of all, there are no more boundaries. What do I mean by boundaries? Today, on and offline have to be approached together. There is no more commercial communication and corporate communication because for the consumer, corporate communication is going to be part of his decision when he has to think about buying a product. So there are no more boundaries. That's the reason why we have to invent ecosystem, and not only media system, but ecosystem that embrace everything, media and non-media solutions. For instance, I put some example there. When you see a big BlackBerry in front of the Museum of Modern Art in Paris, do you think it's street marketing? The people could connect through Facebook to the screen of this BlackBerry, giant BlackBerry. This is digital marketing, this is street marketing, this is, what is it? When you see this digital outdoor, do you think it's outdoor, or do you think it's digital, or do you think it's an event in the street? When you see the packaging of Heinz, for instance, asking the people to connect on the Facebook page, sorry, this is just a packaging, or this is outdoor as well, because they are advertising on the packaging, etc., etc. So no more boundaries. There is no more standards, and the content is becoming every day more liquid. In the past, when you were playing games on PlayStation, for instance, when you went to your laptop, you couldn't play this. You could play the same game, but you couldn't play the same match. And now you can start in the morning playing on your PlayStation, and you can continue the same match on your iPad and continue at your office on your laptop, and in the meantime in the public transportation on your smartphone. So the content is becoming liquid because the technology has allowed the screens to speak to each other. What are the new commitments for ourselves in terms of communication? First of all, we have to reinvent advertising effectiveness, and one of the main important things is human insight. And I'm insisting on human insight because it's not only consumer insight, because the consumer is a citizen, the consumer when he's communicating with his friends on Facebook is also a human, and it's key today to understand the consumer in real time, and not only to gather him around a room and try to get the information 3 months later. And the multitasking is helping us to understand better the consumer. We have to observe him in real time because we have to react in real time. I put something interesting because we spoke about this, is Pepsi has created an application in the US that allows, when the commercial is on television, to interact with a special application, and then he receives directly on his mobile phone a coupon, and when he goes to the Pepsi shop, he gets a reduction or he gets a free can. Invest in human insight, pilot as well, and monitor paid on and earned media. Today, the sound of a brand, because if you are not on the social networks, your consumer are on social networks, and your consumer are speaking about you on the social networks. More than 40% of the people who are connected to Facebook have relationship with brands on Facebook. That means that our job today is to monitor the paid, the earned, and the owned over time. Not to say you need to have 50% owned media, but to say, okay, guys, I have a TV burst there. How is the sound of my brand on the internet in particular? Is it necessary that I spend more money in 3 months, or is the noise positive enough to avoid to pay a second burst? So paid, earned, and owned media have to be managed, not to give objective to each of them, but to manage them over time. And what is key as well is what we mentioned with the gentleman who spoke before with the question is about reputation. And when I said that there are no more boundaries, is also because if you don't speak about your brand, the people are speaking about your brand. So The repetition is key. Just listen. You have to feel out